Hi there, this is the second of a pair of videos I want to do about a couple of the Moueix Pomerols, and this time it is a property that I've loved a great deal in my 20 years at Corney and Barrow, which is Latour a Pomerol. Now, one of the acid tests I think of any winery is, or estate, is whether it has produced a legendary vintage in its time, and there is absolutely no doubt with Latour a Pomerol it's produced several, and it's quite interesting how actually, you know, often at times sold for higher prices than Chateau Petrus. And if you look back into its history, it was actually in the 1917 that Madame Lubin bought the estate, and she also owned Petrus. And then from the very early 60s, the Moueix family have been totally responsible for all the vineyard husbandry and the production of the wine. So it's been in their stable for nearly 60 years now. And as I say, it's just one of those properties that I've always had a strong allegiance to and a real love for. And I think it is bang on form and really coming back to rival the sort of vintages that it was renowned for in, as I say, the 40s, 50s and 60s. And it's quite interesting reading in Neil Martin's book. He says, the good news is that Latour a Pomerol has rediscovered it. In my opinion, it is beginning to hit a run of form that aspires to those legendary wines. This is the story of the comeback kid, a wine that has got back in the ring and is challenging Pomerol's reigning elite. So there we have it, really, glowing praise. So I decided, having tasted the 19 last week in Pomerol, that I would come back and open up a bottle of the 14 and a bottle of the 16 to have a look at them. It's a wine I buy myself, and I just thought it would be an exciting thing to do ahead of the 19 that I'm very excited about next week. And I think that the tannins in the 19, because 19 is quite a rich vintage, really do promise that this could be one of those legendary vintages again. And I've scored it incredibly highly in my tastings last week, so I'm very excited about that. Say a little bit about the property. There's actually two parcels that go into the Latour a Pomerol. 2/3 of the property is actually from vineyards around the church of Pomerol. And that is sort of gravel and clay and a really great terroir. And then around the chateau itself, which is actually not a million miles away from La Grave Pomerol on the west side of the plateau, there is a more loam parcel as well. And when you combine those two, you get an absolutely wonderful sense of balance. It's quite a gourmand wine, quite a rich wine, and has a lovely sort of generosity and concentration. But the 14, which I opened last night, is really starting to show some of that decadence. It's at the beginning of its window. You know, clearly a wine you can age, but having had the air, it's now absolutely gorgeous. And the 16 is a richer wine because of its youth, but then the freshness of 16 comes racing through, and I think 19 is going to be even a step up on that. It's an amazing wine. There is no second wine made at Latour a Pomerol, which is always, you know, something that the Moueix family don't tend to make a lot of second wines. And it's actually planted 90% Merlot to 10% Cabernet Franc, but in almost all the vintages, and certainly it will be in 19, it's 100% Merlot that actually goes into the final production. So there we go, a top tip from me for the 19s and any other vintages you can get hold of. I've loved this wine for my 20 years at C&B, and I think it's really going places again, and it's very exciting to see. So enjoy the rest of your weekend.